you don't compose CPI for your country alone. International comparison.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised. From next week now, some country may start rebasing of their own index as well. Especially with this new result now. For example, 24.48% inflation figure may show that inflation rate in Nigeria is lower than, let's say, Togo. And mind you, investors' capital investable fund will be channeled toward countries that have relative price stability. That's one of the factors that determine direction of investment. The way it is now, investors have high level of confidence in the inflation figure we have released now, because it's no longer inflation that is induced by lag period. It's an inflation figure that is based on current economic reality. So investor can take decision that this is the current price volatility in Nigeria. Let's move. Let's take action. But some countries that they have been going to, that their inflation rate is more of excessive lag period. As he said, investors are either risk averse or risk taker, but most of them are risk averse so that they can maximize their interest. So as you asked, my brother, some countries may start rebasing their CPI now so that they can also release a result that shows current. There are some countries in Africa today, their base year is 30 years to this period. I know some countries I don't want to mention, some 20, because rebasing is capital intensive. Okay. It's not small money at all.
Okay, I mean, let me just follow up from that because, you know, just like you said, the last time the consumer price index was rebased was 2009.
Yes.
And should we allow that long period because of what you said now, that it is capital intensive? So is that the major bottleneck for this long period?
Yes, the Bureau on its own is willing and ready. But CPI rebasing, as I said, is capital intensive. It's just about the grace of God and the help of government we're able to get funds to carry it out now. So just like my SG said yesterday, when the media asked him a question, when is the next rebasing? He said affirmatively, by the next 5 years, another rebasing will start. So government has heard that in the next 5 years, so MBS will start another rebasing. So definitely in the budgetary allocation, rebasing in the next 5 years or in the next medium-term expenditure framework, rebasing should be in the budget.
Okay. Prof, from what we have said now, have undertaken similar exercises.
Okay, first, something caught my interest, you know, with the MBA's regular methodology, you know, and it is the kind of research that they do. Most of the time it is quantitative. And when research is quantitative, the outcome is going to be reflected usually through figures, illustrations, you know, and those illustrations are easier to digest, much more than if your method is qualitative. When it is qualitative, of course, there can be imputations, you know, that are easily contestable. But the quantitative variant enables us to look at figures, appreciate them as quickly as possible, and of course enhances believability, you know, which also gives them credit, you know, gives the outcome of their research, gives it a lot more credit. And of course, the reason why we should also believe what they are talking about. But of course, we also know that countries that are regular with this kind of exercise, you know, are consistent over the normal period that they're supposed to do. Ordinarily, it shouldn't be more than 5 years, you know. And if it is not more than 5 years, it means that you're updating the other managers, other agencies like this monetary, like the central bank. You're updating them better. You're keeping them informed as much as possible. And of course, they can determine the interest rate, you know, whether it should go up or go down. And on the longer run, it will affect investors. The system is much more predictable, and more activities are much more seamless. And when activities are much more seamless, it can enhance development. And remember, economic matters largely borders on the kind of confidence that you inject into the system. Okay. So if there's no confidence, if you cannot predict it, of course, fear, capital will take flight, and there cannot be growth and development. You know, so it is regrettable that we have countries that haven't done theirs in 30 years, in 20 years on the African continent. Again, maybe that's why Africa is what it is, an unfortunate continent, if I have to use that word. But that we're able to do it a little over 10 years after is gratifying if we have to compare with other countries in Africa that are not able. But we should be looking at countries that are consistent, that are much more regular with it, because it's an intangible that can be very effective, that can be very productive, for economic growth and development. Considering the fact that economic growth and development is also a multi-stakeholder affair, revolving government, to formulate policies and requiring the private sector to also be involved at the level of triggering activities that will contribute, to growing the multipliers, which may eventually lead to job opportunities, the flourishing of all elements, integral to the discourse around economy.
All right. Thank you so much. Victor, you want to sign off the guest?
All right. Professor Abiodun Adeni, Professor of Mass Communication.